Well, good evening, folks, and welcome along to the Endless Celts Podcast. Now, I'm taking that as a win tonight, McGinty. I think the intro started running at 8:30, so it's the first time in a wee while
Oh,
we've
fuck,
actually
so did
been
actually.
running on time. We're going to take
On
it.
time.
How you doing tonight,
I've
mate?
decided. I'm good. As always, Anthony. I'm glad to be here. But I think we should change the name of a Monday night podcast to the two Anthonys or Anthony Squared or something like the
Aye,
two
so it's,
Ronnies or something. Like that. We should make it ourselves because we're all the ones who bloody show up sometimes, isn't
I know. We feel like saying, was it something we said? There was
it?
not too many takers for joining us tonight, but listen, these things happen. Guys have got stuff on, and as Stephen said, he's just done 3 on the trot, so he's wanting to sit this one out tonight. So absolutely understandable. And just wanted to ask as well before we get started, where the what's the retro top of choosing tonight?
It's not retro tonight. I'll tilt it down for a briefest of moments. It's a Atlas club from Mexico again. It's one of I think it's 5 in total. I think I talked about it before where the brand Charlie, they did 5 different shirts for 5 different clubs to commemorate the Day of the Dead in Mexico. So this one's got
Right.
all the kind of skull pattern throughout the background.
You've got an impressive collection of kits, mate. You really do. It's absolutely superb. And it looks like
I
it's
was
a
going
proper
to
Monday club for you as well. You having a wee beer as well?
sneak one in while I can, just the one.
Quite right, mate. Quite right. Well, I'm still very much. I've got my juice there as well, but got my cup of tea here as well. It's still Lent, but the countdown is on. The bevy free time is nearly over, and I can't wait for it, to
Is
be
it a
honest.
week and a half or so, is it?
Yeah, just over that. So Easter's 2 weeks a day. Although I'm working over
Aye.
the Easter weekend, so I'll probably not even have a drink that weekend anyway. But Derby weekend, I'll be properly on it. And welcome along, everybody. In the comments already, San Fran, who's a snitch, Monty, getting started straight away. So welcome along to all of you guys. It's always great to have you and get involved in the show. We'll bring up your comments and just let us know what you're thinking of, what we're talking about tonight. And Anthony, my logos just went at the side there. I don't suppose, would you be able to do me a favour and bring up the Super 6 icon? Mine it's just disappeared
Absolutely
off
not
the
a
side there.
problem.
Top man. So Alistair, Jack, and Ryan Taylor, it is literally neck and neck. It's absolutely brilliant seeing how close this one is, and just a point behind there, Mark Robertson. So very, very tight at the top there, guys. Joe Finlay, Stephen Coulthard, last year's champion, only a couple of points behind, so he's right in the mix as well. Kieran Gilhooly, he'd been the front runner for so long, fell away a wee bit, but he's right back in it again. So, a couple of decent scores, and he'll be back in contention as well. Kevin Hampsey, me and Franny there, a couple of keeping it going for the Endless Celts, and James Bowie. That makes up the top 10. So I think we get a wee break this week, don't we, with the international football? So it's a couple of weeks' time before there's another one. So that's this one. So Monty, you're asking, it's the Super Six. Now Ross had put all the information up at the start of the season. It's Sky Sports. You pick the 6 score lines, and if you guess the correct score, you get 5 points. If you guess perhaps not the correct score, but you've maybe picked the right team to win, or you predicted a draw and it ends up, if you picked 1-1 but it finished 3-3, you'll get 2 points. And it's just the guys with the most points at the end of the season. So definitely some, if we'll try and get a bit more information out for next year, mate, and by all means get stuck in. And San Fran, Stephen pulling up Boyata the day. Oh, God, listen, San Fran, anybody that knows me knows that is one player's name that just sets me off, quite possibly one of the most horrific players I've ever seen disgrace a Celtic jersey. As long as he's as far away from Celtic Park these days as possible, I'm a happy man. So yeah, it's all good.
To say that's pretty harsh words for Boyata, who
honestly,
was far from the worst player.
Listen, of course he is, but in terms of, I think what frustrates me about Boyata is it's almost like I feel like it's like a rewriting a history with me sometimes. Ross put it up perfectly one of the times, and I think he shared it in the group chat. It was about 2:45 before a game one day, and he put up on Facebook, "I'm just getting this out of the way before the game starts. Fuck's sake, Boyata." as if like, you know, we already know he's going to do something.
Aye.
So he's just getting it out of the way. It was like something that you just got used to. I never said that every time he got the ball, I just wanted him to get rid of it as quickly as possible without him doing as much, as much damage as he could. I didn't even necessarily buy into all the, when saying he went on strike. It wasn't even that. It was just, I just thought he was a bomb scare. But there's like folk that like genuinely thought he was like not maybe no CCV, but like right up there and with quality. And I didn't get it.
I think, but I always felt that some people gave him a hard time thinking he wasn't as good as he was. And I'm not going to say he was like world class or anything, isn't he? Albeit that he did play at the finals for Belgium at times. But just thinking, as you said there, I remember lots of people doing that same thing, like fuck's sake, Boyata. Same with Effie Ambrose. You were just waiting for the bomb scare moment. Ambrose, Gary Caldwell. There's always somebody. And thinking on the spot, is this, even though we have an injury-plagued defensive line, and I don't think we've went more than 3 games with a nice, sensible backline this season, yet this season's one of the few times that we've not sat and went, oh, for fuck's sake, Boyata, oh, fuck's sake, Effie. All credit to Scales for stepping up to the plate when he did, and I've said on this podcast many times, he's not the level of player that we need, but all credit where it is. Even Stephen Welsh, and the odd time that we felt nobody's been like, fuck's sake. It's been an acceptance that the backline shit, but nobody's been pinned as the scapegoat. Or Tibbley, Monty Tibbley.
Oh God, Tibbley was dead. I would probably say, I know we've done a couple of these worst 11s and all that, and people can. I think Tibbley. It's normally Tibbley and Raphael. That's generally your centre half pairing, and probably of this generation, like the worst that they've seen. Or certainly post 2000s, they two are definitely up there. But yeah, that was a nice wee change that we've done there for a wee while. It's rather than just the usual kind of going straight into the match. We trip down memory lane or nightmare lane if you're in the same league camp as me with regards to Big Dedrick. But such is life. But in terms of the match itself, McGinty, I don't know if you were there on Saturday or not, but just obviously we were very, very in control the full game. I felt, and although we'll get into some of the VAR decisions and some of the frustrations that took us that long to take the lead, it definitely felt as relaxed, I would say, as Celtic Park's been in quite some time in terms of the atmosphere and just the general knowledge that we were going to see the game through pretty comfortably.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of these things where I work on a Saturday, so I miss a lot of games that are at the 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday at least anyway, but I try and watch as much back as I can. And the joys of my job, driving around in a van all day long, I'll at least listen to it on the radio. So I'm caught up as best you can with the radio, the highlights and all the rest of it. It was a game that, and probably a lot of this chat that we're going to have tonight is probably going to be me harking back to what the boys did in the cool down, because I think the boys spoke really well, and if anybody's watched it, I think they sum up pretty much my feelings for how the game went and the kind of development of where the squad and the club is just now in position of the season. But as you say, Tony, it was one of those games that once the first goal went in, I think we all knew it was going to pan out the way that it did. It was a comfortable game. Looking at the stats on the game, the first half itself, if you're using these apps like your FOT mobs and whatnot, it was pure domination from Celtic. The graphs were all in Celtic's favours. There's no attack really from St Johnstone at all in the first half. Watching the highlights back and some of the goals that we scored were absolutely brilliant. But then some of the goals that we scored that didn't count were also absolutely brilliant as well. It really could have been, it was 3-1, it really could have been 6, 7 or 8 easily. I think it was Ross said similar. It was as much of a thumping as you could give somebody without scudding them. 6, 7, 8 goals sort of thing. It was a pretty comfortable game. And I want to echo, I think it was both Ross and Franny at the time saying the same thing. This is just a continuation of this slow bend that we've been turning the last few games, the last few weeks. If you take it from the second half of Motherwell and Dundee, and even the Hearts game, which we go down 2 men, and you can still. I can understand the frustration from fans not to see the performance because of the result, but when you look and see what we're trying to do, it's still in the same vein of what we've been doing since that second half of Motherwell, all the way through to St Johnstone there. The passing, the tempo, the intensity, the closing down, even with a makeshift midfield and a makeshift backline, you can see the development is all coming together at a great point now that we've got the title race and it's 8 games to go now, that it's all going to come hopefully in our favour. And you even hear Brendan Rodgers at his post-match where he acknowledges his substitute was a bit of a shite substitute to take Carter off, put a water in the defensive backline. The boys again were talking about it on Saturday night. Does he just hate Lagerbielke? Simple put, probably to some degree, or hates using him. Hate the players play, hate the person's play, a bit harsh. But even Rodgers acknowledging that, it says, yeah, that's where we became passive, which is something that we as fans and journalists and commentators have said about a lot of the season. It's been really passive. So it's great to even see Rodgers acknowledges in the game, fuck, we went back to the way that we don't want to be, and he changed it up again. So the tail end of the game again, it was all fine. Hart is bailing at the goal that is conceded. Rightly so. He's wanting as many clean sheets as he possibly can in his last season. He wants to go out on the high, so rightly so, absolutely bailing. But it shows again the manager and the players all on the same side, and that's a great thing going into an international break. But when we come back, those last 8 games, it's got to be some ride.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I did notice that actually. I was at my nephew came with me on Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon, and when St Johnstone did score their goal, I mean, Joe Hart was. I mean, it was even a good minute or two later, he was still absolutely raging at his back four, and like you say, absolutely rightly so. I don't think he could have done much more to keep it out. I think he was at full stretch, and he managed to palm it away, and it's just unfortunate it's fallen to the St Johnstone player. But yeah, definitely, like you say, it was one of those moments that we switched off. But it was rare in the game, like you say, and I think that was most pleasing. And I think that's possibly why, despite the fact that we had the frustrations with the obviously a couple of goals being chopped off, one of the potential penalties not being awarded, which we'll discuss in a little bit, and the fact that there was a lot of these kind of scrappy chances that 9 times out of 10 we put in the back of the net, and that it wasn't going in. I mean, Awata had a great shot that was cleared off the line not long after all the kerfuffle with the penalties, and perhaps maybe 4-6 weeks ago we would have thought, is that going to be the story of the day? Is it going to be another sort of outing similar to what it was like against Kilmarnock, where we have all these chances and then we blow them, and then we get ourselves into all sorts of situations with regards to potentially dropping points. But in the end, I think once the first goal goes in, and I have to say, but we're obviously going to touch a bit more on Kuhn in a little bit, but for me, in fact, we'll actually just combine the two of them because I think both points are valid. Much has been made about, is it going to be Kyogo? Is it going to be Adamida that starts, the next couple of games coming up? Obviously, Livingston away and then Ibrox. But it's certainly looking like Kyogo's realised that he's in a battle for that jersey, and he more than staked his claim on Saturday. I felt not just with his overall play, his passing was good and very crisp. I did say that first header was very Henrik-esque. Everyone always used to joke about Henrik being the smallest player in the park and always getting first to the ball with his head, and it was absolutely a fantastic header. Great ball in from Kuhn, who's again shown his qualities in the last couple of games, but then it was roles reversed for the second goal. And again, that's something that we've been a bit guilty of throughout this season, of doing everything right but not being clinical enough in the final third. But the fact that we kicked off the second 45 and by minute 46 we were already 2 goals to the good, that showed you that intention, picking up where we'd left off from the first 45 minutes. That's the kind of way we want Celtic to start games, and that's the way that we want to go in this final push.
So had to do some maintenance work there with a banner at the bottom. Can you repeat the question there, Tony? I took my eye off the game. Sorry.
But basically, just saying how we were working there. It was sort of like how we were playing from the end of the first half into the start of the second. There was no sort of tailing off. It was just we kept going, wanted to get that second goal as quickly as possible.
Exactly, and you've seen it so many times, especially this season, but you've seen it throughout all the seasons of the recent history, if not all of history, where if you don't get the first goal at a good time in the first half, you can usually see, especially this season, the game drags on and the fans turn on to the players and the players turn on themselves to some degree. They get caught in their own heads, and you see a drab 0-0, going out to a scrappy 1-0 win later on. We need to. Sometimes you get that first goal way too early in the first half, and you see the same situation where it's like 85 minutes of shite. But to get the quick goals again on both sides and getting that cushion in it, you need the extra goals in modern football. You can't just rely on a 1-0 anymore. And it's good to see that we are going out and getting the second goal and the third goal. And when you've listened to Brendan Rodgers the last few weeks, especially going back into January, he was quite adamant on saying that nothing's changed. I don't ask the players to play any differently from last season. They're asked to play the same way. And yes, I can see where he's getting that from and why he thinks that. But there is something about a Brendan Rodgers style which is generally more possession-based and a bit slower than what an Ange football team would be, albeit same formation, same personnel to some degree. And generally, if they want to be attacking football teams, it's in essence a similar setup. The same as Ronnie Dyle was a similar setup to a Brendan Rodgers. But the intensity and the tempo wasn't there in the same way that it was last season. But it is coming, again, as I've been saying the last few games, the last few weeks, it is in there. And it's great to see it now coming into where we don't come out in the second half and think, all right, cool, we'll take it easy, we'll build it. No, it's come back at it. Let's just, the quick passing out wide. There's an overload on one side where it ends up being 3 people in the box while 2 people coming down the left side or right side, whatever it is. There's an overload, there's an intensity and the tempo, and we're actively going out and trying to get that extra goal when we can. Because as you can see, a moment where we switch off, a moment of stupidity where we put Awata in the defensive line, which, by the way, not overly at fault for the goal from what I can see. But there is moments of stupidity when we're playing with such a makeshift back line that we're going to concede more often than we would like to. So we do need the cushion. We do need that tempo. We can't just rest on 1 goal or even 2 goals. We need to push it out. And it's great to see that we do restart the game with now that same intensity and just keep going at it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And just in terms of the Kyogo, Adam, sort of, I know we sort of touched on it, but obviously he's absolutely came back into the form that we know that he's more than capable of in the last couple of games. And I don't know about you, but I just think he just seems to be getting ready to, but pretty much up to full speed almost. I know he's not been injured essentially, but just with the fact that he had been a bit off form, perhaps lacking that little bit in confidence. But I just think he's slowly but surely coming back to the Kyogo that we all know he's capable of, and he just seems to be starting to peak. I think just at the right time, not just necessarily for the upcoming next couple of games, especially the one at Ibrox, but for the post split fixtures as well.
Yeah, it's something that I've tried to explain in ways. Again, going back to that second half of Motherwell, almost everybody in the Dug can see that something happened at halftime at Motherwell where we actually changed the intensity and the tempo just changed. But it's almost like we've realised somewhere. We all remember the Neil Lennon Kilmarnock 3 each game where we're getting pumped at halftime. Then we came back and threw it 3 each. That was a moment where, for the rest of his first tenure, we were like, right, he's brought that thunder back. He brought the man motivation and management of it all. It feels like something like that might have happened at halftime against Motherwell. The manager, the players realise, fuck, we are in a rut here. We are stuck. We need to just build ourselves out of it. Was it the players themselves? Was it the manager? Who the fuck knows? But something must have happened there. And it's weirdly interesting that that's the point where Kyogo came off and Adam Ida came on, and he gets his couple of goals, he gets his couple of penalties. He scored, was it 4 or 5 goals now he scored? And he's had a great little run.
Yeah.
I would say there's a game or two where we've watched Adam Ida and you think, we can see why you're third choice at Norwich. Because he is still, I mean, he is, 22, 23. He is still a bit rough around the edge. Sometimes, maybe he's more of an instinct player, that kind of little and large, put him up the top and he can hold people off, kind of Sutton-esque almost. But maybe when it comes to the ball at feet situation, he's thinking too long about what he's going to do with the ball. He's maybe not the greatest and a little bit still to learn there, which is absolutely normal at the age of 22, 23 and absolutely fine. But you can tell that Kyogo is the more experienced one. But again, back to the halftime at Motherwell, it coincides that something happened with the whole team to realise intensity and tempo needs to go up. Closing the opponents down needed to go up a level as well. And it coincided with Adam Ida coming in. And when you score a couple of goals, couple of penalties as well, 4 or 5 goals he scored in the run of games that he's had, you can't just drop Adam Ida. That's completely unfair. Similar happens with Yang before he gets sent off against Hearts, and similar is now happening with Nicholas Kuhn, and rightly so. They don't become undroppable, but they do become it's your position to lose. Not that it's yours by any given right, but you have to, back to Adam Ida, you have to put a few performances. If you keep putting in performances that says you're doing good, then we're not going to drop you. But if you put a performance or two that says, maybe you could use a bit of a rest, maybe take a sit out, because again, players who are 20, 21, 22, 23, they're still in development. They can't play, as we see with Bernardo, we can't just have them playing 40, 50, 60 games in a season, expect them to play like Callum McGregor every single game. Callum McGregor's 30 this year, he's an experienced pro. We've all championed the fact that Callum McGregor's played 60 plus games, 6 seasons in a row, something stupid like that, and he's an absolute machine. But not all players can always do that. That's a mental, bucking over the trend is what Callum McGregor does. That's the level of Iniesta, Xavi, Pirlo, who his name was mentioned about with the amount of minutes that he played in one single season at times. He plays that much. But when you come to guys like Bernardo, Kuhn, Yang, even Adam Ida, they can't play 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games in a row at that level. I mean, we would love it to, but they're still young. They're still developing. So it becomes a point where Adam Ida did have a game and a half where he did show qualities that weren't quite there, where you need him to play with the ball a little bit more rather than the instincts of being the big guy at the top that you just ping the ball into for the headers. And it coincides with the change that he comes in, the change of style, which funnily enough, and I think Ross has been mentioning this on the podcast as well, funnily enough, the style that we're now playing with the intensity and the tempo, with the fact that Kuhn is coming onto a great game last 2 or 3 games as well. This is the style that Kyogo is used to playing. The fast balls getting whipped in, or even for his goal where Kuhn comes back inside into the middle and it's almost a lofty pass that comes over for Kyogo's goal. These are things that weren't happening 6 weeks ago in the first half of the season, but they are happening now, and it's more in tune with what Kyogo's used to playing with. So I can understand why Kyogo wasn't looking so good. I can understand why Adam Ida comes in, but the fact he's now coming into a team that suits him now, it's going to get the best out of him. It's going to get the best for us. And we are mad tangents. I know that, Anthony.
No, it's not at all, mate. That's what that show's all about.
I think the more I speak, the more that we'll all have some fun. I just want to say, though, don't know how in depth we're going to get with this individual game because we did do the cooldown, but I'm noticing quite a lot, and I've always said this about Maeda. He's not a winger. He's so much more effective when he's just instinctively in the middle of the box sort of thing. He just doesn't think about it too much, just hits the ball and it goes in the net, or he lays it off, whatever he's doing. It's happening quite a lot just now, not just with Maeda, but even with Nicholas Kuhn. And I think it's a great balance that we're now getting, that we've got somebody like Kuhn who is on confidence, and he is back to somewhat relative fitness with his weight and his match sharpness and whatnot that he's building back into. Well, a lot of play goes down the right hand side now, and it's allowing Maeda to drift from the left into the middle because the play's on the right. He doesn't need to hug the left line, so he can swoop in, and Maeda starts to look a lot more dangerous. And then if you take Kuhn's goal the other day, it's actually pressing play on the left side. Was it the goal kick comes out? We press high on our left side, and I think it's Kyogo that gets the ball. There's 3 or 4 Celtic players on that side, but because the press is over there on the left, it's actually allowing Kuhn to drift into the middle of the box, where Kyogo just gets to basically square the ball off along the 6-yard box and lays it on a tee for Kuhn to get his goal. And it maybe the pass wasn't as whip it as what Abada would have done for Kyogo previously, but that's still the same style of football that Kyogo's been used to the last 2 seasons, of knowing that the winger on the opposite side is going to drift in and balls can be put across the face of the box or the 6-yard box, and there's somebody there, and it's working for us. It's great to see.
It absolutely is. I mean, Patrick's just brought up there, we're talking about, forward options. I suppose it is International Week, so it might as well bring it up. He says he's seen a few things possibly on, I'm assuming, social media regarding, and I'm sure it was about the time of the transfer window, just at the tail end of it. I think this kind of rumour popped up. Stephen will probably know best. He's our official Twitter man. What would your thoughts be on someone like? One would assume that he would not be possibly the first choice striker. Assuming, of course, Kyogo's still around come the 1st of September. But would you say there's a place in the squad for a player like Che Adams?
For a player like Che Adams, yeah. For a player like Adam Ida, yeah. There's a place in the squad. A player like Giacomakis. There's a place in our squad for somebody who's not Kyogo. I think Kyogo is our number 1 striker. He should be our number 1 striker. He signed a new deal in the summer there, was it? I don't think we should be looking to sell him at all. I get that a lot of people understand that he's not traditionally a Brendan Rodgers kind of centre forward. Rodgers would much rather somebody like Brendan Rodgers would much rather somebody like a Dembele or a Vardy or somebody of that ilk, which would be more suited to an Adam Ida or a Che Adams. But I think for Celtic in the way that we want to play and are playing most recently, Kyogo's that man. No bad thing to have a second choice that is different. So yeah, I'll take somebody like Che Adams. I'm not 100% sold on Che Adams though. We'll let you run with the next couple of minutes, Tony. I need to get a little plug for my laptop.
Well, folks, I think McGinty's got a few technical issues there, so I think he's just going to go and get charged up. So I'll bring up some of the other comments. So, Patrick, just to answer your question sort of from my side, my thoughts kind of align with McGinty. I think, I'm a fan of Che Adams, I have to say, although, even going to the Scotland games, you would say he was still the second choice striker behind Lyndon Dykes in the national setup. But I think there's been games where Steve Clarke started them both. And even in the games where he started as well, like he has impressed. I think there's that he's not the most prolific of goal scorers, which is always kind of what you need at Celtic. But listen, it would all depend on how the manager, the new manager, how Brendan Rodgers wants to play next season. Assuming that Brendan will be here. Monty, we need another number 10 in the style of Tom Rogic. Listen, these players are hard to come by, Monty, but I totally see your point in terms of trying to get that that sort of player, that maverick type player. I know obviously we have a bit of a Tom Rogic lookalike in Louis Palmer, but I think we've got to go a little way before we get that kind of guy. That before Palmer can start mentioning himself in terms. Monty, I would love to see. We're getting 2 for the price of 1 here. This is brilliant. The captain's seen we're in crisis and he's stepped in.
You're so massive.
Brilliant.
You can go back out if you want.
Right,
no, sorry, I'll stay on there. There's no point me jumping off. So it's like...
Top man. Stephen, I'll just come right to you then. Monty says he wants Edward back at the club. Could you ever see that happening? Would you be happy if that happened?
What's the situation at that Crystal Palace? Is he not playing? I thought he was playing recently for them.
Like yourself, I don't really follow the kind of fortunes of Crystal Palace very much, but anytime I do watch, he's either not really starting or he's not really kind of. I mean, half the time he's not the main striker. Like he almost plays in almost like a Tom Rogic role, like sort of in behind the striker. Who's I can't remember the kind of main creative player now. He is a good player. Don't get me wrong, but yeah,
is it Eze? Isn't it Eze or something?
Yeah, but he's definitely not like. I don't think he's adored the same way that we adored them, shall we say?
I mean, I think it's just, again, it's the romantic side of football, isn't it? Some of these ex-players who want to come back again, and I mean, will he come back? Will he fit in? He's a quality striker, in my opinion, but I think we should be looking elsewhere for different targets. We've been there and done that with Edward, and he left, and we got a good transfer fee for him. The whole thing being linked, but I don't know if we're linked with him. I think Monty's still saying he would like him back, but yeah, I mean, in a sense, a quality striker at the French Eddie would be fantastic in the team. But I think we need to move on from that kind of romantic and sentimentality side of things of wanting ex-players back or wanting ex-managers back. I'm kind of against that. Once you've been, you shouldn't be back again, in my opinion. But I liked him while he was here, of course. But again, if he comes back in the future, so be it. I'm not the manager. I'm not in the recruitment team, but for me, it'd be a no. We need to look elsewhere.
That's fair enough, mate. Sorry, McGinty, what about yourself? Would you have? I
was just going to say,
do you have French Eddie back?
I would take him back, but I agree with Stephen. The romantic side of it is where my heart says I would take him back. But we have to move on at times, and the team develops and moves on as is. But not that I want to turn this into the Crystal Palace or the EPL love affair or podcast of any kind, but it's always fascinated me that if you look at players, especially strikers in the EPL, Didier Drogba, for an example, was always lauded as a top quality striker, and he is a top quality striker. But he scored, on average, I think it was 12 or 13 goals a season when he was in the EPL for Chelsea. By no stretch, I consider that to be great. And I know the Scottish League's easier than the English League, but, our strikers are worse than their strikers, our defenders are worse than their defenders. So comparatively, oranges and apples, or, relative terms, whatever way you want to look at it. But I still reckon old school ways, a quality striker in any league should be getting you 20 plus goals, if not 25 plus goals in the league. That's my marker. If you're scoring 20 plus goals, I ain't questioning your ability. I think you're top notch. And I always remember this as Didier Drogba was lauded as one of the best EPL strikers while he was there. But he averaged something like 12 goals a season in the EPL. And then Gary Hooper left us and went to Norwich, funnily enough, and he got hounded. But there's a big issue when Gary Hooper went to Norwich. There's three things that were against him. One, he played as a lone striker when he's used to playing it in a 4-4-2, kind of two up front sort of thing. Two, Ricky van Wilswinkel was the main striker, so he actually played second fiddle to him. And thirdly, on average, relegation fodder EPL teams, and keep in mind that Didier Drogba got lauded as one of the best EPL strikers for scoring on average 12 goals a season. The bottom 5 or 6 teams in the EPL, relegation fodder, their strikers only score about 8 or 9 goals this season. And funny enough, Gary Hooper was scoring about 8 or 9 goals this season for Norwich. So actually, he was bang on par. I also pure mad tangents. I'm turning it into the Gary Hooper Norwich Crystal Palace love affair here. But looking quickly at the stats for Austin Edward, he's played 22 games. Minutes wise, it's equivalent of 15 games, and he scored 6 goals for Crystal Palace, who, guess what? They're not in the relegation zone, but they're relegation fodder. They're in the bottom half. It's absolutely bang average. And I mean that in a positive way. He's not flopping. He's bang average where he should be for that level of club in that league. 6 goals in 22 appearances. That's fair for being bottom half there. So anyway, tangent on the half. I would take him back, but it's a romantic side, Stephen, and I do appreciate and I do agree. You should move on when you can. We shouldn't go back too often. I'm not against it, but you shouldn't go back too often.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I suppose you would always say we draw, but I think he was part of such a formidable team, especially that first team under Jose Mourinho, and obviously you had the goal contributions that you could rely on for the likes of course, Frank Lampard, and especially that early phase. Arjen Robben was a menace on the left hand side as well. But that wasn't a huge fan of them, but there's no denying that team were some team indeed. But yeah, I
think as well.
The kind of
think as well
factor that can be a bit strange at times. Sorry, Stephen, you were saying.
Had to check my mic was on there. I thought it was on mute. I think as well. I think the teams in football's changed. The over reliance on the striker now, I think, is gone. Strikers are bought and primarily bought now to fit a system and to fit a way of playing. I think years ago it was just get it into your number 9, see if they can score goals. Strikers now have to be athletic. They have to drop deep and play. They have to link up the play. They have to also score goals. They have to assist goals, and that's why you see that Rodgers is always speaking about it. The whole team contributing with goals and assists. It's not just relying solely on your striker or your forward players. So yeah, I think if you're looking at Eddie, for example, like McGinty said there, 6 goals and 22 appearances, but how many of them is he actually started in? It's a good return. That's not taking into account what he does with the ball, how he plays within that system. So there's different things you have to take into consideration. I think goals, yeah, that they can gloss up a striker, but what can they offer the team as a whole and as a collective? Can they close down? Can they play 90 minutes? Are they a luxury player? Do you have to cover for them? So there's a whole different thing we have to think about when we just think about a bona fide striker, in my opinion. So Kyogo for me is the definition of a player who can close down, who can link up play as well, but his main attribute is scoring goals, but he can mix it up, which is why he fits systems really well. And I think that even Ida, to a certain extent, when he plays well, can do that. So yeah, strikers have evolved. You're not talking about like a Ruud van Nistelrooy or Didier Drogba no more, who can only really do one thing. There's different end products now a striker has to do, and that contributes to the whole team collective.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. And now that you're with us, Stephen, I appreciate obviously you were on Saturday night as well, doing a bit of the post-match reaction. So obviously me and McGinty have covered a fair bit of the game and obviously focused on Kyogo and Oliver Nicholas Kuhn, who've really showed their qualities on Saturday. And of course we've paid tribute. We had quite a lengthy discussion on James Forrest last week. I suppose you could just copy and paste the answers again from then. So now that we've got a wee trio, I thought maybe try and do a couple of different topics in that sense. And the first one I want to mention is, of course, we had the result on Saturday that put us top. We thought there's a good possibility it might only be for 24 hours, although I think people did have a sneaky feeling that just with the way things were going, that Dundee would at least give Rangers a hell of a game. But the Mother Nature had other ideas, and the game was called off. So that match will have to be played at another point, which meant that we will be officially top of the league going into this international break. That shall be the last one before the European Championships begin. I just want to come back to yourself straight away to think. Of course, there's lots of different ways it can be spun, and I suppose you can do it in the way that whatever way you want to spin it. But what's your gut feeling on this? Would you have preferred to even just got the game out of the way, regardless of the result? Are you glad that this is potentially going to, cause a little bit of a pile up for them in terms of how many more games they've got to fit in? But do you think also that this is almost like the last? This is almost like the last pit stop, almost before the final furlong, before the end of the season. Do you think that in any way psychologically, the fact that despite the fact they have a game in hand, and despite the fact that if they win that, they would regain top spot, that there's a little bit added pressure on them now, and the fact that we're at this last pit stop, and when you look at that league table, Celtic are back in pole position. Do you think that could play negatively for Rangers and absolutely positively on our part?
Well, suppose you have to take any advantage you can regardless of his fixtures, congestion, players out injured, all that type of stuff. But I mean, for me, I'd prefer the game at Dens Park to be played, to be honest, to see where we stand. And look, the whole pitch debate, I'm sure we'll talk about that in the summer, but having games called off the top league for waterlogged pitches, I think is a joke, to be fair, in my opinion. But moving on from that anyway, it reminds me a wee bit of, remember the pressure we felt in the COVID season when a few of our games got called off, and it was like accumulation of fixtures, and we didn't quite crawl our way back to the top of the league, and they built up a points gap. So it could work in our favour in that side of things. The pressure is on both of us, and Celtic and Rangers were in the title race as well. And technically, we are on top. St. Paddy's Day weekend as well. What a weekend to do it! And it's a good feeling being back on the top of the table, having this break. And as you said, it's the final push when we come back from this, and we have Carter Vickers back, Rio Tate back, Cal McGregor back. So it looks like the big hitters are come back into the team. But yes, it's a good thing. I mean, could it play a part psychologically on them as it were top, and they've got to play effectively 2 more games to reclaim that again? Obviously, the game in hand and then the game originally for the week after. Could be, Anthony, but I think all season we've been trying to, well, since we've been behind, we've been trying to find these edges and different ways of looking at things, and it just hasn't quite worked. But look, if it goes the way it did for us in the COVID season, where we kind of buckled under that pressure and we let that points gap get bigger, then it's a good thing. And Patrick McLaughlin just put it in there at the bottom of the comments, step by step, and I totally agree. We keep knocking down our fixtures, we keep getting the points. We just have to focus on ourselves and solely on ourselves, and that includes the derby games coming up as well. So if we keep our house in order, if we keep winning our games, then the title will be coming back to Parkhead. But again, any advantage is a good one, Anthony, and get into the break, top of the table is a good feeling.
Absolutely is, and I hope you enjoyed Justin Patrick's day, mate. It's well remembered. McGinty, what about yourself? How do you kind of take it? I mean, at first I thought it was somebody was at the wind-up when they told me that the game was off, but then my daughter had mentioned it, and then 2 or 3 others, obviously it starts coming through on the news feeds that the game's off. I suppose I think there's a lot of fans that thought, given their efforts on Thursday night, obviously, but with the weather effects, it was always going to be potentially a very heavy surface regardless, and there was a chance there for them. Even if they were to win the game, they would have certainly, it would have been another match where it could have taken its toll. But there's on the other side, there's a lot of fans that are just happy to see we're back top. The pressure that bit of pressure is back on them now, so to speak.
I'll paraphrase a great man called Brendan Rodgers. It was St. Patrick's weekend. I didn't give a fuck. I wasn't keeping track of it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I don't know where I sit with it, to be honest. I agree that I would have liked to have seen them play on a shite pitch, heavy legs, make them more tired, possibly more injuries. I've no doubt that a red card to Dundee and a penalty would have happened at some point in Rangers' favour. But just to see them go through the turmoil of playing on that pitch would have probably done more damage, even if they got 3 points. Probably would have done more damage to them long term for the rest of the season than just postponing it and fitting it in. No doubt when they would have expected to have or hoped to have played another Europa League game anyway. I don't think it will block up their calendar too much. It's one extra game at a point where, as I said, they would have been hoping to get another 2 games in European football anyway. So they would have factored that in psychologically at least. So I don't think that matters too much. I think it works in their favour. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters, and we've heard this so many times in previous seasons, as Stephen says, and even in the COVID season, points on the board. That's all that matters. We went into the international break, albeit a game in hand. So we played a game more. We're top of the table. It's them to chase us now at the end of the day. The whole thing's in our hand, guys. And again, I'm going to keep going back to that Motherwell game at halftime. I was ready for chucking this season in. I was fed up. I was done at halftime against the Motherwell. I was done with this season. And we came out and something's just happened. It's like a switch has been flicked. and I even include the Hearts game. The performance, I think, in the Hearts game was decent, and the way we played football in that Hearts game is similar to what we've played in the last 4 or 5 games now. Something's happening with Celtic now in a positive manner, and it doesn't matter what they do. It's completely in our control. In the Motherwell game, I was about to chuck the whole thing, but realistically, we've got 2 games against them. Even if they were to play yesterday and went a point ahead again, we've still got 6 points to play against them, and I've got all the confidence in the world that we actually get all 6 points there. At worst, 4 points, but that still puts us in the lead anyway. It's in our hands. We do our thing, we'll win the league.
McGinty, that was like a locker room speech there, man. I was loving that. But that's it. You're absolutely bang on, and I think that. I mean, I appreciate. I mean, well, certainly the media down south have got a job to do. And, they're bigging this up, and I mentioned it a lot in the group chat. The Jim White Simon Jordan show on TalkSport. I mean, you can naturally guess which way Jim White's wanting that to go. But there seems to be so much put on this game at Ibrox, and it almost like you've actually nailed it there. It seems to be forgotten that there is actually another derby to play after the split. Everyone seems to think Ibrox decides the title when, listen, of course, it'll have a big part to play, but there's another 3 points up for grabs at Celtic Park. It could be as close as a fortnight later, so and for what it's worth, I think there will be more twists and turns as well, because when you look at who the top 6 are likely going to be, I don't think there's going to be any easy games in there for either side. So like yourself, I think it's just the fact getting points on the board and, que sera, so to speak, and, we'll take it from there. And what about, just thought I'd bring in yourself, I'll come straight back to you, McGinty, and then back to Stephen, just with the fact where the international break's sort of fallen, midweek, middle of March, 3rd week. Obviously, after that, we have the Easter weekend, where we have the tough trip to Almondvale or whatever Livingston are. And, they're absolute certainties to go down now. But we know that, if there's one thing David Martindale will want to put on one last hurrah against Celtic, especially he'll try his best to, dethrone or derail our title bid. Do you think that it's that the breaks just came at the right time, or would you rather there was another Celtic game this weekend, shall we say?
Oh, again, yes to both. I think it's came at the right time for both us and them. The fact that they need the rest and they need the break because they're getting tired. They've got a lot of injuries. They need something to happen for them. They needed this break. The fact they've got it with the postponement to give them an extra few days off, sort of thing, even unintentionally, it'll work in their favour quite well. But at the same time, it works in our favour because we're sitting here knowing that Carter Vickers is back, but he's been managed the last 2 games. This week to 10 days off, which I believe Rodgers has said that he's going to have a closed doors game anyway to get some of the players back up to match speed. I think that favours Carter Vickers especially, but it's also going to favour Hatate and then potentially Cal McGregor. That we'll wait for these 3 guys to be, bang fit, ready to go, and I think that favours us massively. But I still want to go back to the points on the table thing. I just want to play the next game while winning the momentum, while we've got this confidence. I just want to keep playing and keep chalking off the points. And the more we do that, the better for us. So it's a bit of both. A bit of I'd rather play the game. A bit of no. I know these guys, especially Hatate and Cal McGregor, they're due back now or in the next week. And giving us this 10 days is just going to allow the fitness and freshness of these guys just to get up to speed. Even Nicholas Kuhn, who we've talked about already tonight, I stand by. Same with Ross the other day, by the way. I stand by it. I think I was absolutely correct to slate him in these first few games.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. We're football fans at the end of the day. We can only judge players on what we see. And I get and appreciate that there's stuff that's happened with him where he's losing the weight and stuff that's went against him. But his first few games, he was absolutely honking. But he looks a much better player now. But similar to Yang, they're both going to need to be managed. But this, again, is going to allow Kuhn to get up to more fitness, but a bit more weight on if he needs to. I believe Yang's now back from his suspension. So, again, 10 days for him to get up to fitness again, to fight it out with Kuhn. I don't know where Palmer's at with his injury, but Maeda's just got to do what Maeda does anyway. But all this is coming together in the midfield, the back line. It's going to be good. I think it's going to be good for us coming back after the kind of 10 days off.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you there, mate. And sort of, Stephen, what's your own thoughts on it? As McGinty mentions there, this break offers a little bit of an opportunity just to reset. I know, as you say, Kuhn and others will get the chance probably in a closed door game to just get their fitness back up, but it could be so vital for the returning players as well. Obviously, they're never going to be 100% match fit when this comes back. However, a couple of extra days, another week, could be crucial for getting these guys back up to speed quicker ahead of the final run-in.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from that sense, injury-wise, and also players getting back to fitness, this break comes at a good time. But I, in general, cannot stand international breaks during a football season. I'd rather the club football just play out, and then whatever the internationals want to do it in the summer or whenever they fit in. But for me, the injury side of things is good, and I also think what Rodgers has done particularly well is speak to the national team coaches. The likes of America have been told, I think, to leave Carter Vickers behind. Japan have been told about Kyogo, and then Rio as well. So he's putting the feelers out there, telling the international guys not to pick his players because they're only come back from injury. I think we haven't done that well enough in previous times for these breaks, because our players play a mammoth amount of games during the football season. And having Callum McGregor coming back, Rio, Carter Vickers back to full fitness after a couple of games, it only benefits us. I mean, you're talking about here Rio Hatate, probably the best midfielder in Scotland on his day. Carter Vickers the best defender on his day. Do you know what I mean? And these guys are coming back into full fitness. Yang as well. He really excites me. I've said this from the start. We were having a wee debate in the comments before I had to jump on with Monty and Patrick McLaughlin about who would you put in, Yang, Kuhn, Palma, Miera. For me, Palma's now fourth choice. It's crazy how it goes, in my opinion. But Palma, for me, would find himself on the bench, and I see Yang, Kuhn, and Miera ahead of him in the packing order. And that just speaks about the volumes, like Anthony was saying. Like Kuhn, like we didn't know his weight issue. We didn't know what was behind his loss of form. But now we do. And as I said on the cool down, you're allowed to change your opinion. Opinions evolve and they change. Just because you say one thing one week doesn't mean they're going to prove you wrong in the next coming months. And Kuhn's done that in his last two games, and rightly so. To his credit, he's been playing fantastically well. But yeah, it's a good time. But as I said, international breaks are just an annoyance, in my opinion. Just stick to the competitions and have a couple of games in the summer and have a kick about with your mates. Whatever you want to do, just don't interrupt club football. I don't understand why there needs to be 4 or 5 international breaks now. Nations League and all this pish. Just leave it. Just do the Euros and World Cup. So it's crazy.
I mean,
just let it go.
Obviously, the teams do have to have that. I get the overall sentiment of what you're saying, but obviously,
I know I'm kind of joking around a bit.
Oh, I know, yeah. But obviously, these tournaments, you have to qualify for these tournaments. So, of course, I do agree. I think one of my kind of things with it, I think it's almost like there's about 3 or 4 in the autumn time, and they're all quite close. It's like you feel like you have 2 weeks, and then it's back to the internationals.
September, October, November. There's every month almost.
I always think you could. What I think would possibly be a better idea is to have a longer one rather than 3 smaller ones. Could you do it have a 2-week international break rather than just the week, and then maybe play an extra game in there, and then that maybe does it the process quicker. But
I joked in the group chat. Mm-hmm. I joked in the group chat. Make the World Cup 170 odd teams, whatever it is that actually FIFA qualifies as a national team, and just play it. 8 games straight knockout. It's about the equivalent rounds of games that we currently have in a World Cup anyway. Just play a straight knockout formation, and whoever lands. I was joking, but technically, can I measure it with what you're saying there as well, Anthony? Why not just scrap all the? Was it 1 September? There's 1 September. You get about 4 games into the season, and it's the weekend after the window closes. Yep. There's an international break, and then there's an October one, usually about 22nd or something. I'm going to say there must be one in November. I don't think there's anything in December or January. Then you get hit with one in March again, as you say. So there's at least 4 this season, and that's 4 weeks. a World Cup only lasts 4 weeks anyway. How about we just stop internationals during the season? Everybody can bring the season forward 4 weeks, and then just play all the qualifiers in one little mini tournament. So you play all the qualifiers for the World Cup's every 4 years and the European Championships every 4 years, and they're into like every second year in that. So there's between every World Cup and Euros, there's a year off. So that year off, there's your qualifiers for the Euros for the next year, and then after the Euros, there's your qualifiers for the World Cup the year done. Every year you've got every year you've got an international tournament for 4 weeks. Everybody can get excited for the qualifiers, then the finals, qualifiers, then the finals, and we don't interrupt the season.
Listen, that's maybe, I see it, man. Again, you'll always have the crowd that say that players never have like an absolute, like, have a down, but a downtime at all. But of course, I mean, how much downtime do they actually really get at this point? In this day and age, I suppose it's a fair point. It's well, as much as you could take that to Dragon's Den, see how you get on, mate. And also just on top of obviously the international break. Speaking of jumping on the plane, one of the other things that Celtic have just announced today, Stephen, is some of the pre-season tour. Now, I don't think everything's been confirmed yet, but I think just reading some of it came on air that there was like 3 different venues that had been, different parts of the United States. But one of the games is going to take place, I think, in Washington, D.C. I think it's Chelsea we're going to be playing. So, obviously there'll be the Premier League sort of razzmatazz around it as well. I think this is a good thing. I suppose it's quite apt to talk about it on St. Patrick's Day as well, with the fact, so much of America's got proud Irish roots, so many parts of it. And this is something I feel Celtic should be doing more. Of course, we've done Japan, etc. last year and understood that with obviously the Japanese contingent of players that we have. But even when we did it last season, when we played at the Aviva in Dublin, I think that should be part of Celtic's pre-season schedule. Every year there should be a game in Ireland. And perhaps if that became more of a sort of frequent thing, and perhaps if the price of the tickets was a little bit more competitive, rather than, I think it was €50 to go watch Wolves last season, which is ridiculous for a friendly. But if you lower the prices and increase the capacity, and it becomes like almost like part of the fixture, the calendar for Celtic fans. I think we've got a huge following in the state. Well, we've got a huge following worldwide, but definitely with the Irish, sort of diaspora side of things, I really think we should be paying more heed to that. So I think this sort of trip stateside could really be a good thing to try and renew that kind of connection with fans that are based in the States. But what's your thoughts on it? And what would you back a game in Dublin every year that we could all head over and meet up for?
Well, I tell you what as well, first and foremost, it's a money-making operation. Let's not get away from it. Celtic are trying to expand their brand. They're trying to expand the Celtic awareness. And any way we can make up the money we don't get from TV deals or competition revenue is a good thing, because hopefully it'll be reinvested back into the playing squad. But we've said this for many years and it hasn't happened. But in terms of the actual and tour itself, look, I'm all for these things. I think we played Real Madrid once in America, didn't we? I believe it was America. Or Barcelona as well. Yeah, I think we played 2 of them. So yeah, exploring options over there and engaging with the Irish community and the American Irish community itself is a big one, and there's a lot of Celtic support within that. Just at this moment in time, the First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, is actually over in America with the congressmen and people over there trying to drum up money for the north of Ireland. So I mean, America's where the money's at. Not that I necessarily agree who she's mixing with, but that's what they're doing as the biggest political party here. But look, it's a good thing to go stateside. And again, I think we should be exploring Australia. We should be exploring the likes of Thailand and back into Japan again. Any way we can make global gains and get revenue into the club is a good thing. The Celtic Japan Twitter is among the top 10 biggest Japanese football Twitters in European football. We need to keep exploring different options and making different communities as well, not neglecting support in other parts of the world. In regards to the Ireland, I think Celtic have probably neglected Ireland the most, to be honest.
Yeah,
We've played Shamrock Rovers a couple of times, and with players from the under-19 team and things like that. And yeah, we've played Liverpool in the Aviva, I believe, and we've played there against Wolves recently. But it needs to be a season-on-season thing. And it needs to be every season, like you said. There's talks up here. We're meant to be redeveloping Casement Park, which is a Gaelic ground, just literally 5-6 miles where I'm from. So if they can reinvest that money, if they can get that going, that project, maybe we could play a game there with a lot of fans in the north. Do you know what I mean? 100%. At Paul McFarland, the Falls Road community, West Belfast. Aye, but you know what I mean. It'd be a good idea, and as you said, if we can meet up, all of us as a collective, as a podcast, to come to the game either in Dublin or up in Belfast, it'd be fantastic. But yeah, just to cut a long story short, Anthony, exploring different revenue streams, I think is a good thing. You talk about kit sales, merchandise, they'll be raking it in America, and look, well, we're paired against Chelsea. They're going to be bringing their own following, so it'll be a money making thing for both sides. And look, if we can get our Irish community up and going over there, and that support growing as well. There's a lot of supporters in America, especially North America, I believe. It's a good thing, and to get Celtic well known again around the world.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. And what about yourself, McGinty? Will you be getting a wee flight over to see us take on Chelsea stateside?
A wee flight to the States? Absolutely not.
He's meant
Make it in Dublin.
Yeah, he's meant
I fully agree with Stephen and even yourself, Anthony. This should be every season, and I get we did the there's a meme joke around Scottish football about Celtic announcing the Japan tour, but 10 years, 15 years ago, and it all fell on its ass because of qualifiers, and people say it's illness season, sickness season, whatever, and we wanted to delay it, whatever. It doesn't matter. We bailed out on a Japan tour a decade ago. I hate when we do that shit, because I love when we do go to the Far East or to America, because exactly what Stephen just said, it's money making. It brings the fans in because we've got a worldwide fan base, and we should be looking to actively do this shit all the time. Now, I get that a lot of the seasons in recent past, not the most recent of seasons, but the recent past, qualifiers play a part. We can't be gallivanting to Japan and Australia. But America, the East Coast of America, is only 5.5, 6 hours on flight. There's no reason we can't go there for a week to 10 days and put in 2 or 3 games, pre-season stuff, and come back over and do a Dublin game as well as part of the whole thing. Now, the Dublin thing, or just generally in Ireland as a whole, and I'm all for what you're saying, Stephen, if you're going to develop other grounds and stadiums within Ireland, and you can take a Celtic versus somebody and help generate some income and revenue and infrastructure. But again, it's our roots, it's our heritage. Batter into it. I mean, Adidas are on board with bigging up our heritage, as we've seen be the random shirts that we're getting around about this time of the year that we never play in. But here's a fucking idea. How about we play a game in Dublin every single year in the Aviva or wherever else in the island, and you get teams like, let me think, St. Pauli, Real Betis, Bilbao, clubs who actually have an affinity and a connection to Celtic. Real Betis had the colours in the shirt because of Celtic. About 5-6 years ago, they brought out an Andalusia green and white hoop shirt that was in a throwback homage also to Celtic that they announced publicly. I think it's Club of Atletico Bilbao actually have in the back of the stadium a Celtic crest that the fans, the ultras, have put on the back of the stadium. It's a weird story if you have to figure out. I'm sure it's Bilbao that have it because their fans have an affinity to Celtic in some way. And I think, I might be getting this wrong, but I think one of the founders of Bilbao was actually a Celtic or an Irishman of some kind. There's some weird, really historical link to it. But if you can get a Betis, a Bilbao, a St. Pauli every other year to come to Dublin to play Celtic in a glorified friendly, that beats the hell out of the Wolves. We don't need a Man United or Chelsea or Barcelona, but you can get that caliber where it's actually an exhibition of fun and entertainment that people want to go back. The fans will get excited about that. And again, Anthony, as you say, don't make it €50, make it 25, 30 at most. You'll sell it out. And you know what Adidas can do? Because I'm all for Adidas being our kit manufacturers for forever at this stage, because I love Adidas gear. But see, when they keep bringing out the shirts that they've just brought out now, the pinstripe one with the orange stripes, or last year's heritage one for the Irish Roots, play that in that game.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Then it becomes a real shirt that people actually want to buy, glorify it up. But at the same time, back to the tours, I'm all for it. I get that we can't go to the Far East too often, especially if we're playing qualifiers, but you can do 2 or 3 games in America on the East Coast. We should always be looking to do that kind of stuff. And if we can fit in a Japan or a Southeast Asia to Thailand or Australia or something, then we should 100% try that. We should be doing that every year. What was it, about a decade ago? So that this was like a big thing for Man United and Barcelona. So they were making mini tournaments at Milan and stuff. They were making mini tournaments out of this. That was worth 5, 6, 10 million just for doing the tournament.
Sure, did we not get 6 million for doing the Sydney thing? We got around about that figure for more money than you get for winning the actual SPFL, which is crazy to be fair. And see as well, like you said, again, it should be a cycle. Like, do every 3 years America, every 4 years Japan.
Yeah.
Just keep it going and keep building that community. And like, it beats like a couple of seasons where we're playing like Blackburn at home at Parkhead for a stupid pre-season game. Take that game, put it in the Aviva. Why can you not do that? It's literally a half an hour flight to Dublin from Scotland. It's absolutely baffling why, as McGinty said, that Celtic can't think like that.
I know at some point, friendly wise, we want to have probably 1 or 2, more like 2 home friendlies. But at the same time, bring clubs over from Ireland for a friendly at Celtic Park. That's a big thing for them. It gets the fans in Glasgow to go along and get, again, the whole Irish connection.
Something different.
A true thing.
Yeah.
Bring it on. But then have that final game at home against a big team from Europe or England. And that sets you up for the season. But there should be that 1 or 2 games that is a walkover for Celtic if it's against an Irish team, no offence. But it's the exhibition of it. It's the culture of it. It brings everybody together. 100% we should be doing that shit.
Yeah. But for what it's worth, I totally agree with everything you guys say. And hopefully this trip proves to be successful, and it's something that from which these kind of plans can grow to become a more frequent affair. But in terms of the show tonight, boys, that's pretty much it for tonight. You've enjoyed that one?
Yeah, it's good crack. I like that. It's good.
Yeah, well, Stephen, thanks for jumping. Obviously, we didn't know how long McGinty was going to be of his power outage, but it's always good. You always come in to just steady the ship, as always. So it's ended up being nice, another wee trio session tonight. And thanks again to everybody for that's tuning in. Thanks for everyone for the comments as well. If there's a couple of new people in the comments there. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to like and subscribe, and you'll hear more of our dulcet tones on your YouTube account. We're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So double pivot on Wednesday night, Stephen.
Yes, double pivot is back. Don't ask me who's on. I need to check, but it's definitely on Wednesday.
Stephen, I don't even know who's on a Monday anymore.
You don't even read the schedule, McGinty. That's the problem.
True. McGinty just rocks up when he wants.
Come on, every Monday.
Oh, that's great, guys. Thanks again. And as I say, we'll be back usual time on Wednesday night for the double pivot show. But until then, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.